thing to her concerns with the construction noise. I just wanted to kind of point out that in a lot of neighborhoods, you'll get a lot of homeowners that have diesel trucks for sure, and I don't plan on working on them, leaving them running or anything. It's not gonna be a mechanic shop of any means. It'll just be an A to B type of thing. And then as far as, to add to what he said, with the forestry tax, given with the forest ranger's requirements, you have to remove 1 acre of honeysuckle every year to be in that, so that actually helps with the vegetation to keep all the trees mature.
Is it your plan to continue with that forestry program?
Oh, yes, sir, yeah. It cuts my taxes in half, absolutely.
May I ask one more question?
Sure.
It has to do with somebody else who lives in that area. They're always target practicing up there. So is there any plan to put in anything that guns can be shot up there? Because right now, somebody's always shooting off a gun and getting all the dogs in the neighborhood worked up. So that question would be directed to this gentleman.
I think we're here to determine whether or not he can build in a certain area.
I know,
That's
but
really
see,
outside of-
I'm trying to look to the future too, as to, once it's there, it's there.
That's absolutely right, and so we have to be concerned about the future, but that's not a zoning issue.
Oh, it is not.
I
would
don't
say
think
that.
so.
I wouldn't think it is.
I mean, if you're talking about like a target practice
I don't know what he's doing
business,
up
that's
there. I
one
just hear
thing.
guns going off all the time.
No,
Go ahead, Jeff.
But that was another concern I had when I say noise. That would exacerbate the situation. And I'm all in favor of people shooting guns. I just wish, that has nothing to do with this guy if he's not planning on doing target practice.
How far is Lunken Airport from you?
I'm sorry, what?
How far is Lunken Airport from you?
Oh, Lordy, I don't know. 5 miles, maybe?
Okay. And then Greater Cincinnati Airport? What would you say?
I can figure that out as well as I can. I live on Bridle Road, and that is in Lincoln County.
The flight path would tend to bring aircraft over our houses.
Well, I can't do anything about that.
Thank you.
If you can redirect them, I'd be happy.
Someday. Are there any other witnesses? Okay, hearing no further comments, or if there are no other objections from the board, we will close this public hearing on this case.
So moved.
second.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Is there a certain image or plan that you guys would like me to have displayed?
This one's good. We got started. I think, actually, let me, I'd actually like to start with a question to staff, which maybe I should have asked before. The home occupation. The zoning resolution permits in a residential area a business run out of a home if only resident family members are employed there, there's no sign, no goods are sold, and a few other things, right?
Yes.
So if he's a sole proprietor, he's got just his trucks, maybe a couple trucks, but just his trucks, that's permitted here.
Yes.
If he hired an employee and an employee wanted to drive a truck around, that would not be permitted.
Correct.
He would need a use variance for that, potentially.
Yes.
State your question again? That counters staff's opinion.
Well, I want to make sure I understand staff's opinion. So a home occupation, so we're just looking at the resolution here. Home occupation is a business or profession carried on by a member of the immediate family residing on the premises. There's no sign, there's no commodities sold, no person is employed other than a member of the immediate family residing on the premises, and no mechanical equipment is used except such as customary for purely domestic or household purposes. I'm not sure if he can comply with that one. I have to think about what use is, but if his business is a home occupation, he can do it there. We don't have anything to say about it.
Correct.
But we also, but with Article 5, with the other staff recommended condition, because it is a residential piece of property, it would not be permitted, the property owner currently would not be permitted to store sorry, let me just find the staff report so I can.
There were a couple other things in home
So there was,
occupation which included that he resides on the property. And that customary for purely domestic or household purposes.
right, so that's where it kind of is a little bit confusing, because with Article 5.3 I2, it doesn't, the Anderson Township zoning resolution does not permit construction equipment to be stored on the property.
5.3 I2.
Without a variance, of course, yeah.
5.3.
Sorry.
H, almost there. I, 2. 1, 2, where's 2? Okay. No truck, construction equipment, or other vehicle of a business or industrial nature shall be parked upon a residential lot except a pickup truck not to exceed 14,000 pounds, 20 feet in length, a van. In no case shall you store a semi-trailer or tractor, and some other stuff. Okay, so if we grant the area variance to allow it to be constructed in the front, where it's supposed to be constructed in the rear, he's still got to contend with whether or not he can comply with home use occupation. And if he wants to park any truck, construction equipment, or other vehicle of a business or industrial nature, he needs that variance in.
Would that variance be necessary if he parked it inside the building? No.
Correct.
Would it still be
Yes.
would the variance still be necessary as required by law?
To-
If he took the piece of equipment, just say whatever it is, and put it in the building, would he require a variance to put it inside the building?
Yes.
It says stored, not parked.
Okay, all right.
It doesn't matter if it's enclosed or not.
Okay, that's
The
what I
o-
was wanting
yes.
clarified. Okay.
If I can talk about the conditions, the proposed conditions that we had. We included Article 5.3 I2 based on the storage of construction equipment. We included the condition about home occupation somewhat as a preventative measure. Obviously, he owns a business, and, should the business grow at all, there could be, and he were to hire any, employees who were to show up, or if he ended up needing more equipment, we just want to make sure we have some sort of protection that this isn't going to become a home occupation. And so really, it's a preventative measure, I think. We can take another look at the definition of home occupation and whether or not we think he's meeting that, but I just wanted to provide a little bit of that background.
Could he meet it if we accept that the residential structure has to be built within X time frame?
Could you state that again?
If, as part of the condition, we would say he has to build the residence on the structure in X time frame, would that meet that criteria then? Right now, it wouldn't because there's no residence on the site.
I'm confused by the question, I'm
Well,
sorry.
Even if there was a residence
think it
on the
matters.
property, I think that the restriction doesn't allow for construction equipment either way.
Correct.
Correct.
So even if there was a home there, it's based on what I'm reading,
Um,
5.3
So
I2.
this was, there was also a staff recommended condition that was not put into the staff report. We kind of discussed this actually today with the Director of Planning and Zoning. One of the other conditions that we would like to include would be something to prevent the structure, if this case were to be approved, we want to be able to prevent the structure from being built, and then, for whatever reason, the property owner changes his mind and decides not to build the house, because there needs to be a house on the property if there's an accessory structure. So,
That's what I was asking.
yes, yes. I'm sorry, I was
Yeah.
confused. So
We know
basically,
there's not a residence there now, but if he builds a residence, does that impact
yes,
this?
that would be a condition that we would like to include, is if he constructs the barn on the property, he would then have to construct the house on the property at some point. How big that time frame is, that is up to the board to decide.
And then as far as the use for the accessory structure is your problem and not our problem as we make the decision today?
I think so, yeah.
So
If you want to clarify.
Yeah, so you would be saying from an enforcement standpoint, so if the board were to approve the location of the accessory structure with staff's conditions, and the applicant were to store construction equipment on the property, and we were to receive a complaint about it, it would be a zoning violation, and we would be responsible for enforcing that. Does that offer clarification, Mr. Halpin?
Yeah, I think so. Does it to you guys?
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
And if well, no, I'm sorry, never mind.
Here's a question. The recommended conditions really just state things that are already requirements under the code, right?
Yes.
Are those intended as condition to prevent him from coming back and seeking a use variance later?
Yes. And the board has the option to, either go with staff's recommended conditions, or, if you choose to not go with those, then that is up to you.
If we stripped off those conditions, he would still, in fact, be subject to those conditions under the resolution itself. Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
And I guess I'm just kind of wondering if, I think what I heard the applicant say earlier is that he intends to park a pickup truck, a dump truck, and some collectibles in and around here. The zoning resolution says you can't park a dump truck in a residential area, right?
Mhm.
So I guess I'd ask the applicant, did you know that, and does that change your plans?
It's under the weight limit, but I think it was 14,000 pounds.
Oh,
It is under that weight limit.
okay,
It's a small one.
Still a piece of.
okay. So that would be, so.
I think he's referring to the pickup truck is under. Okay.
Okay, and the pickup truck is just a personal vehicle?
It's out in the parking lot right now, I drive it every day.
Okay, so that wouldn't change your plans, you think you comply?
I'm sorry?
So that wouldn't, so that does, nothing in that provision changes your plans? You think you can comply with that provision if you can build this building?
Which provision?
The pickup truck not to exceed 14,000?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There is a Bobcat though,
There's a Bobcat, oh, that's right.
Bobcat's
which would,
under that weight limit.
which would have a trailer, I assume.
Trailer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you told, yeah.
And actually, you know what, even if you had the trailer and the Bobcat together, it's still under 14,000 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know if we need to reopen the public hearing.
No, we don't, we were asked, yeah, we were good.
We clarified with our attorney, we can have him come back up if we would like.
Do you want to come back up, just to make sure we can hear you? I'm not trying to talk you out of this or anything, I want to make sure that if you go into this, you know what you're getting into.
Yep.
Because it goes on to say, no truck, construction equipment, et cetera, except a pickup truck under 14,000 pounds, blah, 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 blah. No tow truck, stake body, or dump truck may be parked on a residential lot.
So that's the part that I would need you guys to give me permission on, because my
Okay.
dump truck is under 14,000 pounds, and I
Okay.
don't drive it every day.
I understand.
So, yeah,
Okay,
I'm just
so-
being honest with you guys up front.
And we appreciate that, because otherwise they're gonna
Yeah,
issue violation and
absolutely,
you're gonna be back
absolutely.
here for something else. So that's a use variance, not an area variance, right?
We can, he can, I think the board can grant a variance to Article 5.3I2.
I think we can too, but it's a use variance, which is subject to different standards. And we don't have a staff report of that, I don't know if you guys have an opinion on that. We could talk about it, and it's here on page 14 of the zoning resolution, we can fight through it. But I didn't come in here thinking we were gonna be considering a use variance. That being the case, I wonder if staff would like any more information about the truck, for example, I don't know. And maybe we need to consider this again another time.
I agree with you. I think we're at the point there, we need further definition as far as how this dump truck Bobcat issue is all gonna play out before I'd wanna really address the variance.
I think,
In the case, well, we don't really need it, it's your obligation. We pass it, and you bring it in, and it violates the standard, and that's your issue, not ours,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think to put it differently, if we granted exactly what's requested in here, you still couldn't park the dump truck there. You need an
Correct.
additional permission based
Yes.
on what's in here. Now, this same board gives that permission, so I think maybe if we have supplementary application materials, we can.
And that's why I thought it was important for you guys to know that, you're
Yeah.
not gonna see it, it's gonna be behind the barn.
And I appreciate that. I mean, I guess, to move on from that issue, I'm inclined to vote in favor of the variance, but, I mean, I take the neighbor's point that, we're concerned about vegetation, we're concerned about noise. I think probably in and out traffic is not such a big deal. I mean, this sole proprietorship, home occupation restrictions already in there. There isn't anything in the plan, I don't think, that would commit to maintaining vegetation, for example.
No, but just so you know, that was one of my wife's requirements, that I leave 60 feet of trees. She's like, that was like her only requirement on the whole property, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'd feel better if that were in the application.
Well, you're already in, though,
Well-
the tree program, and if you drop the
Yeah.
tree program, what is the cost impact to you if you were to drop?
$2,800, I think. That's the
annually?
difference of it, yeah, that I would
$2,800,
have to
that's
pay.
annually if you drop it.
Yep.
I think the other part is that a lot of these regulations are mostly for suburban homes.
Right.
And this area is not necessarily, is more, I would call, kind of rural, if you would.
Yeah, but it's still zoned double A
Yeah.
residential.
Yeah. But I guess that was more for the purpose of building subdivisions, I would think.
Which you could still subdivide.
I guess. Probably isn't worth it, that's why it's probably.
I'm just gonna tell you my opinion about this is one huge commercial structure. This is 3,200 square feet. It's 16 feet high on a side, 880 by 16 feet, facing 8 Mile Road. It's 40 feet deep, 24 feet high. He's talking about doing it in metal. I do not believe that this is appropriate at all for a residential area.
So just so you know, sir, I attached a different picture with the one he had with James Hardy siding as a consideration for you guys as well, in case you guys had a problem with the performance panels.
It's back in there.
Yeah, I know, it's a huge building. There's no house that's that big, anywhere close to this.
And then I was just in hopes that you guys could consider the structure down on 8 Mile, that's like double the size there.
We've heard testimony
I
that it
just- that's
was
all.
prior
I
to the
understand.
zoning code and, I don't know,
The barn?
I am not in favor of it at all. Nobody's convinced. You've been doing a good job trying to make it work. It doesn't satisfy home occupation, and dump trucks and whatnot are not allowed to be parked there. And I know you're trying to say, because it says pickup, not more than 14,000 pounds, so can we make it so the dump trucks? not
Well,
more than
I also candidly, I mean, I don't know if staff has an opinion on this. I read the dump truck, pickup truck, et cetera. It says a pickup truck. He's got a pickup truck and he's got a dump truck. Is it 2 trucks? Is 2 trucks allowed? I don't know. I think, I guess what my suggestion is that let's continue this to next month and ask for, a staff opinion on whether it would be appropriate to grant a use variance to allow a dump truck here under 5.3I
for staff's opinion of that now.
I'd love it if they have one. I don't think they came in expecting to give one.
That's cool.
I would like to probably talk to our township council before moving forward with the use variance. I don't believe we've ever granted one of those. And I would need to get a little more information on that.
So, I mean, it would make sense.
Yeah, myself,
Yeah,
my
so
own
it
opinion,
would-
my own opinion, I'm uncomfortable until we get some clarification of all this.
And it is a very,
And I agree with you, it is a large structure, you know. and
So,
it's,
yeah, along those lines, why that size? Why does it need to be 3,200 square feet?
Just, like I said, my boat, I got an old classic car, I got a Harley, I got a lot of stuff.
Okay.
And I have no problems, trimming it out with vinyl windows, making it look like a house, because I understand, his concerns.
Excuse me. Could I ask the gentleman a question? I don't know if that's appropriate or not.
You would
Okay,
need to address the board.
I can bring it up to you guys.
Yeah.
Is there a reason that this structure is going to be built before a residence? That's my question.
I think it's fair to say that's a concern that's on our minds. We've heard some,
I'm sorry?
I think that's a concern that's on our minds. We've had. a
Oh,
lot of-
okay.
that-
I'm
that
just
came up a minute
curious.
ago.
Did you want to say something to that? You have a, yeah, you are.
It's because of the incline of the hill. It's, I think he said, 400 foot from the road? So to even get up to the build site is quite a task. So once the building's built at halfway down the road, we can have materials and equipment, if you will, down there halfway up, staged to build at the very top. It's quite a challenging build.
I just want to mention that while an accessory structure is not permitted on a property that doesn't have a principal structure, there is a provision in the zoning resolution that allows the construction of an accessory structure prior to the dwelling. The reason we needed to hear this is because it's in the front yard. A structure is allowed to be built on the property before the dwelling if it's for construction purposes. I would need to look through my zoning resolution to figure out which article that is, but there is a provision for that.
Is there a site size minimum for something like that? I mean, if it were like 2 acres and you're trying to put that on there, I could get it, but like with 11 acres? I mean, is there like a, you see what I'm saying? Like, because it's such a big lot, I mean, is there different rules
Yeah,
for
so,
that?
so the way we determined that the applicant would be allowed to construct, I believe it was a 7,400 square foot structure on the property. So we multiply the width of the lot times the rear yard setback of the property, which for a AA zoning is 60 feet, and then multiply that by 30%. So that's the largest accessory structure you're allowed to have on the house. So the width of the lot influences that calculation, yes.
But not the overall acreage?
Not the overall acreage, no.
So what's the front yard setback?
For this property specifically?
Yes.
50. 50 feet.
Is that for the home or for the accessory?
That's for the home, yeah.
So if you,
Because the accessory is supposed to be in the back. So the setback would have to be more.
Yes.
So it has to be in the rear yard. The depth of the rear yard is,
The required rear yard setback
Yeah.
for the 60 feet.
so no matter where they're gonna build, it's gonna be not in the rear yard.
so, do I get a,
Well, I think there's a couple of ways we do this. We can either vote on this, or we can ask staff to talk to council. I don't know if that's gonna change my mind. This is a huge, huge structure.
It is a big structure. I also think, though, that if the zoning resolution is gonna prohibit him from doing what he wants there anyway, we don't have to he's gonna withdraw the application and we're not gonna have to decide whether it's permitted. So I think some additional guidance on, or at least a staff opinion on whether or not a use variance, which is subject to different standards, should be granted. So, unless anyone disagrees, I think I would move to continue this to the next meeting in order to obtain staff's report on a use variance related to whatever that section is.
For home occupation.
No. So, home occupation, well,
I mean, it clearly doesn't conform to home occupation.
you don't think so?
No. Based on purely domestic or household purposes.
But is he using mechanical equipment on the premises? I don't think parking a truck is probably using it there. But,
I don't get that as being a domestic or household purpose.
but if he's not using it, right?
He's storing it,
Yeah. is that
storing
using-
commercial equipment. I don't need to go further there.
That's a separate question from compliance, right? Like, so, maybe I misunderstood what you said. So, I think we need a staff opinion on whether or not the board ought to grant a use variance on the truck parking, okay? I think what Steve's saying is he'd also like a staff opinion whether or not we ought to grant a use variance that would relieve him of the home occupation using mechanical equipment requirement. I don't even know if we can grant a variance for that. We probably can. I think Steve would vote against it. But I think he wants the staff opinion on it, I think is what he's saying. Is that right?
No. You're, Mr. Nye, I appreciate it. This isn't a home occupation, and I think the zoning code's clear that he's not allowed to park dump trucks there.
Right, so the question is, should we grant a variance
On
that would
what-
permit him to do that?
And then, in order to help staff formulate an opinion as to whether or not the variance would be or would not be substantial, on what criteria would they make that determination? And I don't think there is any.
So the only report we have is, you know, the report that lists the standards to be considered that come from 2.12D to B, which is the area variance. There's different standards in a 2.12D2A for a use variance. What I'm saying is I want staff's opinion on whether or not he can satisfy D2A. They just haven't expressed an opinion on it yet. Maybe they think he can, maybe they think he can't.
Okay.
Whatever they think,
Okay.
we'll vote on it.
Okay,
I think I know which way you're leaning.
that's what I was asking. Okay.
So that's what I'm asking for, a staff opinion based on that. Can you give it to us?
Would you mind if I just reviewed the standards real quick?
Sure.
Okay.
So I mentioned earlier that we've never, I personally have never written a staff report for a use variance, and I think whenever it comes up, we would generally encourage probably a zone change as opposed to a use variance. And I don't think we would encourage a zone change in this location. I think that the standards for the use variance are very tough to meet. That being said, we can discuss it with our township council and see if he feels it would be appropriate to go with the use variance.
Okay, that's my request. I move that we continue this matter to the next hearing to allow staff to prepare prepare a report on whether or not, for staff to make a recommendation whether or not to grant a use variance on this property in addition to the area variances.
And there is, regardless of whether I like the aesthetics of it, the size of the structure is completely acceptable on this lot.
Correct.
Yeah, up to 7,400.
So the applicant for this piece of property is permitted an accessory structure of 7,400 square feet. The applicant has requested an accessory structure that is 3,200 square feet in size.
And the difference is that the 7,400 square foot building is required to be in the rear yard. And we are considering a variance request to be located in the front yard.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very big front yard structure,
It's a very big front yard structure.
and he might not even be able to use it for what he wants to use it for,
Right.
even if we gave it to him.
Right. I'm gonna second the motion. And so the use variance is gonna be based on, D2A.
D2A, those are the standards.
Okay. That gives you the direction we need to go.
Okay. Is there anything else the board requests from the applicant?
I would,
As far as additional materials, do we want any clarification on what's being stored?
I'm not gonna request anything specific, but the zoning resolution says you can't park dump trucks. You can only park certain pickup trucks and so on. At the next meeting, we'll decide whether or not we can allow you to be exempt from that requirement, but you have the burden, so show us the truck, you know, tell us what you're gonna do there. You know, I mean, it's up to you, but you're gonna have to convince us, and I think it's fair to say you got some skeptics, so,
It's not just a dump truck, though. He's got the Bobcat,
Yeah,
the
everything you
trailer.
got.
Yeah.
you know. I don't have anything specific on the board, but though other things to address neighborhood concerns for the area variance, you know, whether or not you can commit to a specific vegetation plan. I know there's the forestry thing, and that sounds great. If it's part of the application, then we can hold you to it later, that might help your case. I don't know if you're willing to do that. Anything like that, you know, that you wanna submit between now and, in the next couple of weeks to staff, you know, we'll take a look at it, right?
Might
Yes.
you include schedule for a residential structure?
Certainly, yeah.
A schedule for building the house.
Got it. That's all I've got.
Okay.
Other question?
What's that?
Let's vote.
Okay. Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Thank you. Good job, Jeff.
Well, that's it for that case. We can go ahead and move on to,
So I just want to clarify then, we've now continued the case, and currently, the way we heard that case was with an area variance, and those are based off of the 7 standards that are in 2.12B, I'm sorry, 2.12D2B. What the board is requesting is that we hear the case now for an area variance, and so those standards that we were weighing are gonna now be, the standards that are in 2.2D2A. And that'll be. Can you say that again? 2.2? D2A.
2.12.
Yes, I'm sorry, 2.12. Yes. D2A. Yes. Yep. And so,
And that's in addition to the area variance that we've already got.
yes, that's gonna be a second variance, and it'll have a different set of standards. And we're gonna discuss this with our township council, with our lawyer, and see, just get feedback from him on if that's the appropriate direction. And so we can move on to case 7.
Case 7, 2020 BZA. The applicant is Jeffrey and Amy Weiner, property owners. The address is 684 8 Mile Road. Zoning is AA residence. The request is a variance request to allow an accessory structure in the front yard, where accessory structures are only permitted in the rear yard per Article 5.2A7 and Article 5.2B1D of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. The proposed development, the applicant constructed a 10 by 20 foot accessory structure in the front yard portion of their property after receiving approval with zoning certificate number 2028. The home was built in 1953 and purchased by the current owner in 1995. In 2007, a covered entranceway and a 2-story addition were added to the house. In January 2020, staff approved a zoning certificate for a 10 by 20 foot shed located in the front yard, where accessory structures are only permitted in the rear yard. Prior to the authorization of the zoning certificate, staff did not review Article 5.2B1D before issuing the zoning certificate. In February 2020, staff received a complaint of a shed in the front yard and informed the applicant of their options to either move the shed 50 feet from the private drive or to apply for a variance through the Board of Zoning Appeals. This is the property map showing the property along 8 Mile Road. So there's about 20 feet of frontage on 8 Mile Road, and then the private drive located in the eastern portion of their property. This is the aerial map showing there's some vegetative screening down here to the west of the house, and then the panhandle lot off of 8 Mile Road. This is the topography map showing the slope down from east to west. This is the area in which the shed is located is on the flat portion of the property, and the applicant has indicated that it's a more desirable location to have it there. This is the proposed site plan that shows the 10 by 20 foot shed located in the front yard, 25 feet away from their property and 20 feet away from the private drive. It is also 8 feet away from the property to the south. Here's an image showing the existing shed. To the right is the existing private drive, and this is the existing driveway. Looking at the shed, this is looking to the north. This is the existing residence and the existing addition that was built in 2007. This is looking at the shed to the east, from west to east. This shows the existing barn that's located on that property. This is the view from the shed to the southeast. A view taking this picture at the shed, looking towards the east at the private drive and the adjacent property. This is a view from the shed looking to the north.
Is that building back there, is that a house or is that
Right here?
yeah?
Yeah, that's a residence. And then this is the view of the shed looking towards the south on the existing private drive.
And so, the street is behind you. You come up you come up from 8 Mile and,
So
there are two houses down at the end of this, right?
down towards this.
Yeah, off to
this
the
way.
left.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I believe there were.
So when they're
three down
facing
there.
this way, they're going home, and when they're driving the other way, they're leaving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not down here total. There were like 3, and then we count the other ones. I can explain in the findings. Yeah, it'll be a little more clear in the staff findings.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. And then this is the view looking towards the north from the existing private drive. So down to the left is 8 Mile Road, and then going north is the existing private drive. This is from the existing driveway. So 8 Mile Road is behind us. This is looking towards the existing residence. And over here is the existing shed. And this is an image showing the current property. The existing shed is off in this direction, and the existing residence is here. Staff is of the opinion that the variance is not substantial. The existing shed is located approximately 500 feet from 8 Mile Road and 20 feet from the private drive. In addition, while 9 residences have frontage on the private drive, only 5 residences use the private drive for vehicular access to their property. Staff includes the property to the east in this calculation because a barn was recently constructed on the property. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be altered, and adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Due to the unique orientation of the residences, 684 8 Mile Road faces the private drive, while 656 8 Mile Road faces 8 Mile Road. The applicant has indicated that landscaping will be added to the east of the structure to decrease the visual effects from the private drive. In addition, there is a mature tree located between the existing shed and the private drive. The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. The property owner's predicament can be feasibly obviated through some method other than a variance by moving the shed 50 feet from the private drive. However, due to the unique orientation of the lot and topography of the property, as well as the location of the existing driveway, it is not desirable to move the shed to another location on the property. The spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance based on the distance from 8 Mile Road, the topography of the property, and unique orientation of the double frontage lot. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
First question I have is the location of the accessory structure, is it in accordance with,
So if it were in the rear yard, or
no, hold on,
Okay.
hold on. In January 2020, staff approved a zoning certificate for a 10 by 20 shed located in the front yard. Is it in substantial compliance with your decision at that time?
that is correct.
Okay. Well, then I think we got a quandary. Staff gave them approval, and now, after having uncovered additional information in the code, in the zoning code, you're now saying that they're out of compliance with the zoning code. They did what we said they could do earlier, so I'm wondering, this is not a variance. And forgive me for saying, but this is the appellant did what we said they could do. And to tell them that they now have to move it, yikes.
Did you have 5.2? What's that? See, I'm sort of confused because they said, you know.
Well, they're saying that on a panhandle lot that the private drive on the back establishes
that's what it is?
Oh, here we go,
establishes
sorry.
the front yard.
Okay.
Can you go, somewhere I saw the lot diagram.
Oops, sorry. Was it this one?
Maybe the one you were just talking about before. Okay. So the private drive comes up along the edge of this lot and then down the right side of it. And we said there are 9 houses, but only 5 of them use it for access.
Mhm.
Can you show me which ones we're talking about there?
Yeah, so there were, do you mind if I go to the aerial?
Anyone
map?
you want, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's a better one.
Okay. So we have, so there was this private drive, so it goes, so we had, let's see, 1. Oh, does it?
Oh, no, yeah, it
Wait, I'm
starts up,
sorry. Okay, wait, this one, yeah.
Okay.
That was the driveway. So yeah, there were 9 that had frontage, so this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it might keep going, so if there, and then 7. I can pull up Cages if you want me to.
Okay, and, well, no, just stick with this for a moment.
Yeah.
But again, the subject property and at least a few of the other ones do not access the private drive. It just wraps around them. Is that right?
That is correct, yeah. There's 9 that have frontage on the private drive. And then there's 5 that actually use the private drive for vehicular access to the property.
Okay.
But the applicant's property, they do not use the private drive for vehicular access.
Okay. So this is another double frontage lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's 2 fronts and 2 sides on this one, I guess?
That's correct.
No rear.
So with, and when I mentioned earlier in the staff report, do you mind if I go back to the language? Okay. So with it being a double frontage lot, they are permitted to have accessory structures there. We just require that they meet the rear yard setback or front yard setback for that zoning district, which is 50 feet.
Okay, we don't have an aerial that has like a 50-foot line on it, do we?
No, we do not.
Can you go back to, so that, the shed is not in this photo, obviously. But
No.
it looks like it's right about there.
It's right there, yep.
Yeah, so it should be 20 feet, or 25 feet farther left, which is kind of getting close to the driveway.
Yes.
That's a much worse spot for it, isn't it? Sorry, okay, go ahead. No, okay, that's all the questions I have.
And the private drive is not a dedicated street, is that correct?
That's correct. It's a private drive.
So,
But if there were questions as far as the maintenance goes, that could be a question for the applicant.
You'd have to move it 25 feet. And that's topography wise, that's a mess.
okay. Any other questions for the staff? Okay. Will the appellant or appellant's representative please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, state your name, address, any affiliation, and present your appeal.
Hello, my name is Jeff Weiner, 684 8 Mile Road, Cincinnati 45255, so I'm the property owner. I might be able to shed a little bit of light on what happened. My father and I bought a 8-acre piece of property back in the 1990s. We used to access it off that private drive. It has a 5-acre minimum property size in order to use that. So as soon as we subdivided, my sister's my neighbor, my father's my neighbor, my brother's my neighbor. As soon as we subdivided, went below 5 acres, we could no longer use that easement. That's a 1961 easement. So based on what I had written down, what the township zoning came in place in, excuse me, 1987. So again, this is an easement that was in place before the township even had zoning requirements for that. But talking to, it was Paul Drury, when he left me a voicemail message after we had the permit approved. I paid $5,100 to have the shed built, put 4 tons of crushed limestone down and spread it as a base, had the shed delivered, and then received the complaint. He left me a message on my answering machine saying, we got a problem. The problem is either move the shed or request this variance. So I actually have some pictures of what it would look like if we were to move the shed out 50 feet or down 50 feet. It would put it almost in front of my father's rear door. Would not be very pleasant for him to look at. So I am hoping that you will consider granting this. It really is no hardship on any of the neighbors who do utilize that lane, which are actually there's the house that's going to be built eventually, and then 3 more that are down the lane. So right now, there are really only 3 neighbors, take back 4 neighbors that would ever actually utilize that lane.
And you said Paul told you there was a complaint?
Yes, he said that it was a neighbor by the last name of Bolt had sent an email. I don't know the nature of the email. It could have just been a inquiry. But they had said, could you look into this? That's when he looked into it and said, oh, yeah, we never should have done that. I think what he had indicated was the engineer never looked at the aerial view to get the orientation and to see that the private drive was there.
Can you say what you said again about the 8 acres, 5 acres easement?
Yes.
I'm not sure I followed that.
So the 1961 easement that let these 5 pieces of property have access off of 8 Mile Road had a 5-acre restriction. You had to have at least 5 acres to stay on the lane, otherwise you're off the lane. So if you don't have access to 8 Mile Road, then there's really no ability to subdivide. So these all had to stay at least 5-acre pieces of land, except I have a very smart father who also purchased a piece of property to grant access onto 8 Mile Road. That allowed us to subdivide. So, but as soon as we went below 5 acres, of course, we were off that lane, could no longer use it.
So until your father subdivided the lot that includes the house where you now live, you could have used this private driveway?
I did. That was my way to come in and out, while the one house sat on the 5 acres.
And about when did that happen? Before 87?
We would have bought the property back in 1990.
Okay.
About 1993, if I'm not mistaken. And then I think we had then split it and subdivided it maybe around 90, 95, 96.
Okay. And so the other properties that are served, that use this private drive still have that 5-acre restriction?
They do.
Do you know how big they are today?
As far
Like,
as,
so I think you said there are 3 houses, and there's one that might be.
well, there's actually four other houses back there. So the Bolts, who may be sitting on 6 or 7 acres, I think Carl Vogt actually is over 10 acres, so he could subdivide his piece of property, but if you look at the topography, it goes pretty far downhill. And then one of the other neighbors had already subdivided her 11 acres, so that has already been split probably 6 and 5 acres.
So there's 4 houses, 1 buildable lot, which, is that where the barn is or something? Right across
No,
from it?
that's a neighbor who accesses it before he gets to my property.
So in other words, though, there's really only one more potential neighbor coming on that lot, because if they divide anything farther, they couldn't use that driveway.
That's correct. And everyone else is landlocked, so there's no way to get access to any other roadway.
Unless they bought an easement from you, maybe.
Well, I'm not sure that would be my father.
All right, I understand.
Yeah, but it is a little slice of heaven. But part of the reason for building this, or putting this shed in, is I came about a 17-foot runabout. I needed a place to put it. Rivertown Marina wants to charge you about $1,700 every 6 months. I figured $5,100 to build this, or to have the shed put there, was a much smarter solution. So to actually get the permit, to buy the shed, to have it delivered, and then to find out, whoops, we made a mistake, I'm just hoping you can see your way fit to allow me to keep the shed where it is.
I think staff said that there is a plan to add some landscaping around it. Did I hear that right?
Yes, yes, so,
Is that in the materials here? I don't remember seeing it.
I think it's just reference. I was actually even hoping on getting a nod or something like that so I could get started while the weekend is nice this weekend. I've always been a good neighbor to everyone who's been back there. Unfortunately, a lot of the people have left, sold off. So we're not as close of neighbors as we used to be, but still, I'm very respectful, and I would like to make this a nice structure for my neighbors to look at. I'm hoping you can tell by the pictures, it's a nice building. It's not offensive. I'm not going to paint Mail Pouch or Sea Rock City on it. Just want a place to put my boat and a few things from the garage.
Any other questions?
So the picture here with the flags, is that where it will be? Is that 50 feet?
The one with the cones as it faces the newer looking house, yeah, if we were to move it down another 25 feet, that's exactly where it would be, and
Right
I don't
in
know if
front
you,
of that
I don't
house?
know if you can tell very well, but that's my father's back door. So, we kind of agreed for me to put it where I put it. He said, perfectly fine, not offensive, doesn't get in my way, don't have to look at it all the time. You move it down another 25 feet, not only does he have to look at it, The slope, the grade of the property gets a lot steeper, and just the expense of having to dump another 4 tons of limestone and then take up the existing 4 tons that you already had dumped, not to mention the cost to actually have someone come out and move the building.
So you get access to your house off 8 Mile.
That's correct.
There's a driveway here that goes and splits and goes a couple different ways, and one then goes up what I guess is your house and then your father's house.
So the one that goes to the right would be my father and myself, and then the 2 that go to the left would be my brother and my sister.
So this private lane back in the back also serves you?
No. We are no longer allowed to utilize that because of the size of the property that we own. So,
Well, I thought your driveway was connected to it.
no, we had to physically sever my old driveway from the lane. One of the neighbors had a recommendation that it would be best for us to do that.
It ends before it gets to that drive.
And Mr. Haber, if I may ask, if I may offer a point of clarification, there is a landscaping buffer that prevents the applicant from going through from accessing their
bet.
property from the private drive.
So where the cedar tree is, I guess that's mulch, or is that what that
There
is
was-
between the?
So there's the.
That would actually be a pile of dirt mulch, a couple pine trees.
Okay. It kind of looks like asphalt, and I think that's what he was thinking, that
Yeah.
they're
It
attached.
dead ends before it gets to the drive in the back.
Yeah, the easiest way to terminate that was just to dump a bunch of dirt in front of it instead of digging it up.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's the private drive back there. And
Yes.
His shed is sitting right here. Well,
Yeah, this is from the front door of the shed. And this private drive, because it establishes access to the rear mall lots, is a street for frontage purposes. So that's a front yard.
That's correct.
Okay? I don't have any other questions.
Any more questions?
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Does anybody want to speak in
Sorry, Mr.
opposition?
Halpin.
Oh, in favor?
Favor.
Oh,
Were you sworn in? I'm sorry.
no,
can we-
he wasn't sworn in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I did.
Thanks.
I was the construction person here, which was a dream.
I'm sorry. Can you say your name and address? I'm sorry.
Okay, Michael A. Weiner, 6568 8 Mile Road, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45255.
Thank you, sir.
That was a dream that I had because of some friends that I had that were business friends said what you need to do, keep your family together, is you get a piece of property and you cut it up. And they will come. That's how my oldest son, my number 2 daughter, my other son, me, and I've got one more lot for my youngest son. That will give me 10 grandchildren, four family members that have grown up in Anderson Township. I came to Anderson Township in, let's see, I moved on Northport, and it was about, I guess, 30 years ago. And I went to Keswick, and then I went over to, in back of the Coldstream. And then from Coldstream, we had the Weiner complex. Anyway, it's a wonderful place. The private drive, in order to make it work, we bought property at the street. We bought property around there. And the whole, it's a wonderful place. Anyway, that's how it got there. I don't know, most of the people are different, they're all different people at this point. But it's a wonderful place, and most people would say that that would be perfect. And in today's modern world, we kept it that way. And we do maintain it. And we have, go ahead. We have lots of good times together. So, you know, if anybody's guilty, I'm guilty. That's really all I've got to say. That we don't use the private lane. We're not maintaining the private lane. And we come in from different directions. However, the private lane comes across my oldest son. It comes across my Laurie, my daughter. It comes across Jeff's property. Comes across my property. We don't use it, and we don't pay for it anymore.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, my only point is if he said it was a good thing, and he could do it, I think it would be terrible to renege against something, because it's not hurting anybody. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in favor? Anybody want to oppose? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we close the public meeting on this case.
Second.
Roll.
Mr. Lawrence?
Aye.
Mr. Shekels?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Nye?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
If, obviously there was a mistake made